movie. And it was a purely emotional thing. I think that, you know, I could have gone on, could have gone on to the movie and done an okay movie, but I didn't want to make an okay movie. I wanted to make the best movie. So Mel Brooks rang me and said, look, we'll wait 3 months. We'll hold the picture for you for 3 months. And he did, you know, he stuck to his word. And after 3 months, I was still, you know, I think the combination of the subject matter of the picture, because it's a very dark picture and it's a very emotionally driven picture. And what had happened, I still just couldn't commit to it. I just said to Mel, I said, you know, I cannot make the picture for you the way I want to. And he was cool. He said, I totally understand. I want you to do it. But, you know, if you want out, then, you know, and I was under contract. So, you know, they could have forced me to do the picture, which they never would. So he just said, you know, do whatever you want to do. And so, you know, I left the picture then.
So we were in this in this bizarre situation of we had a flawed script, no director, a tainted kind of vibe on the movie because of this horrible tragedy, and certain business deals that had gone through because of the configuration of Brooks Films committing to get the movie, and then Fox saying they would do it. It was a horrible mess. I mean, a horrible, horrible mess.
We were meant to be doing Total Recall for Dino De Laurentiis. And at that time, my daughter was, I think, supposed to be starting in a school in junior kindergarten, and we didn't put her in because we thought we were going to be in Rome for 8 months. David went to Los Angeles to have a final meeting with Dino about Total Recall. Decided that he and Dino were trying to make a completely different picture, and he withdrew from the project.
Scott Rudin was an executive at Fox, and he said, what about Cronenberg? And I said, you know, Cronenberg was like my first choice, but he's not available. He's doing Total Recall. And Scott said, I think that's falling apart. He was kind of our one hope. And he had said that he was interested in rewriting the film and directing. We called his agent and said, you know, how much, you know, what kind of money are you looking for? And he said he was looking for $750,000. And, you know, and so, you know, Mel and I are like, you know, all right, $750,000. We have to do this, or, you know, everything's just going to fall apart and it's simply going to be over. So Barry Diller was the head of the studio at that point, and Mel and Barry Diller had been involved in Elephant Man when he had been at Paramount. So Mel basically wrote him this letter saying, this could be an amazing film. This is, you know, it'll transcend the genre. It'll do this and that and the other. We have an opportunity to get arguably the premier director in this genre. We simply have to do it, and we can get him for $1 million. So, and it was just a beautiful letter, and you know, we had a very good relationship with Diller, and that's so the next day Diller's on the phone and he says, okay, fine, go ahead. So we're talking to David's agent and said, okay, we got your, you know, we understand you're asking for $750, and we would like to counter at $1 million. So fastest deal I've ever seen made in Hollywood. Cronenberg really liked to work with his own crew, so I went up to Canada.
David Cronenberg is a very loyal person, and his crew is kind of in place at all times. Use the same production designer, sound mixer, editor, and in my case, the cameraman on every film. So we would kind of expect to get a call once a year, and David would start up a project.
I've been working with David since the late, I hate to say this, 1970s. And we got together through Peter O'Brien, who was the producer on a picture he was doing in Alberta called Fast Company.
I've worked with David for many years, 25 perhaps. I met him on Fast Company. I met him before Fast Company. I was doing a picture for a producer named Peter O'Brien.
It went through a process of the same producer, but now we have another cameraman that David's used before. And the last minute, literally the Thursday before the Monday, this guy quit. And the script went around, and people didn't want to leave town. I said, sure, I'll go anywhere to work with David Cronenberg.
He said, I'll give you, I'll try to get you picture cutting on this movie we're doing with Cronenberg, if he agrees. So months went by, and finally he called me and said, David's in casting, you should come down.
Peter called me, and I just finished one film the day before, and said, could I get on a plane and be in Edmonton that day and to work with David Cronenberg. And I had heard about David, had not seen his films, but had heard really good things about him. And I thought, why not?
And I got there, and he said he's casting, come back in an hour. So I went downtown, saw a movie. Got very nervous. Finally got to meet David, who I had admired, whose work I had admired. And we spent an hour or two talking about motorcycles, cars, car racing, motorcycle racing, everything but the movie. And at the end he said, if you want to cut the movie, that's fine. So I did.
So I ended up there on, I think it was Saturday, having read the script on the plane. We prepped this thing Saturday night, all day Sunday, start shooting Monday. By the end of the first week of shooting, David was, oh, you seem to know my style. I mean, we're, really clicking here as well. I've been studying a lot of your films ever since I was able to, ever since he's been making them. So that's where we began, on a non-Cronin film. But later, that was 1978, later that year we did a film called The Brood with Oliver Reed. And then in chronological order, we went, I think we did Scanners and Videodrome, The Dead Zone, and The Fly. That was the last film I did with David.
I'm not sure why David and I stay together. I've stayed together so long. I don't know, maybe it's a mutual respect, or at least I like to think that it's a mutual respect. We feel like family. I feel like his sort of unofficial other sister. And we worked, I guess it's his whole crew feels like family, and it's a very nice, calm, peaceful working relationship, and I think it's something that we all like to kind of keep together. It's sort of a calm after like the storm of other movies.
I'd worked with him before on Scanners way back when, and was a fan of his all along, so yeah, very familiar with him. And it was interesting because the producer contacted me first, Stuart Kornfeld, and he said, I'm Stuart Kornfeld over at Fox, we're at Brooks Films, and we're planning a remake of The Fly. Now at this point I was like, remakes kind of, I'm not too hot on them unless they can really bring something new, and so I told him, I said, I'm just not really into remakes, and he said, I know, I understand, just read the script. I said, fine, I'll read the script. I read the script, and that was it.
Once we got the go from the studio, we budgeted the film. The studio said that they wanted to make it. We started, we got the commitments from the crew. We had to cast the lead.
Casting was a major issue, a major issue. In fact, that was one of the sort of stipulations I asked David for, was to just make sure that if we go ahead with this, that casting your lead is the number one priority, because he's where 90% of our difficulties are going to lie.
We had received a list of available actors from an agency, and we're going down the list, going, oh, what about him, what about him, what about, it's like, what about Jeff Goldblum? And it's like, What about Jeff Goldblum? That would be weird.
David's he's wonderful. He's just wonderful because he says he'll look for what he wants in something, but then he'll say, I know you have